When we speak about creating safe spaces for Torah study, obviously we don't only mean a physical location, a geographical locale, a place where people go, but we're also talking about space in the abstract sense, the idea of giving each other space, allowing each other the room to grow, to explore, to discover. So I wanted to study with you today a Mishnah from Pirkei Avos, from the Ethics, chapter 3, Mishnah 2, which speaks about the proper, perhaps call it etiquette, when it comes to the rapport between two people studying Torah together. But before we go into the text, I just want to share with you a story, a nice Hasidic story, before we get started. And it's a story about one of the Hasidic masters, the Yid HaKodesh of Pshischa. When he was a little boy, he was studying Siddur. He was studying the prayer book with his Malamed, his tutor. And he saw where Hashem's name is written as it is in the prayer book, as two letters, the two letters Yud and Yud next to each other. And he asked what it was. So the Malamed said, when you have two Yuds, you pronounce it as Hashem's name. The Yid HaKodesh came to the end of the sentence, and at the end of the sentence there's a colon, a punctuation mark. And that's also two dots. So the little boy asked, he was a little bit confused, he said, "Is this also Hashem's name?" So the teacher said, "No, that's not Hashem's name." And the boy was confused because a Yud, a little letter Yud, is a tiny little letter, it looks like a dot. And before in the sentence you had two dots next to each other, two Yuds, and it made Hashem's name. And now, at the end of the sentence, you have two dots again, and you tell me it's not Hashem's name. He wanted to understand the difference. The teacher said, it's very simple. When you have one Yid, he said in the Polish pronunciation, the Polish accent, where the letter Yud is pronounced Yid, which then makes it a homophone with Yid, meaning a Jew. So there's the double meaning there. When you have one Yid next to another Yid, two Yidden next to each other, that makes Hashem's name. But if you have one Yid above and another Yid on bottom, in other words, there's a power discrepancy and one is lording it over the other one, then that doesn't make Hashem's name at all. In fact, if it makes anything, it makes a soif pasuk. It makes the end of a sentence. Once there's that power discrepancy, there's no more dialogue. There's no more communication. It ends all discussion. So let's take a look now at our Mishnah. Chapter 3, Mishnah 2, Rabbi Chanina Sgana Kehanim Omer. Havim espal b'shloime shel malchus. Rabbi Chanina, the lieutenant of the priests, says, you should pray for the welfare of the government. Shilamoli meira'ah, if not for its fear, meaning people's fear of it. Ish esreu chayim b'la'ai. One man would swallow the other alive. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian, Eimer, now another teaching from another teacher. Rabbi Chanina ben Tradian was one of the 10 martyrs that we read about on Yom Kippur. He says, Shnaim sheyeshvin ve'ein b'neim divrei Torah. Two are sitting, and there's no words of Torah between them. This is called a company of scoffers. Shnemar, like it says in the first book, in the first chapter of Psalms, of a Meshav Leitzim Layoshav, you shouldn't sit in the company of scoffers. But two who sit, and there is divrei Torah, words of Torah between them. Shchina shruya beinayim. The Shchina then dwells between them, God's presence. Shnemar, like it says, Oz nidbru yirei Hashem ish el reyehu. Then those who fear God spoke one to the other. V'yikshav Hashem v'yishma, and Hashem listened and heard. V'yikosav sefer zikaron lefanov, and it's written, it's recorded in a book. L'yirei Hashem el chosh v'shmai, for those who fear Hashem and meditate upon His name. I want to stop there, and I want to ask a few questions about this Mishnah. First of all, we know that Pirkei Avos, the ethics, is beyond the letter of the law. It's about being meticulous, being scrupulous, doing more than required. So the first question is, why is the first clause of the Mishnah speaking about essentially without law and order, people would kill each other. I mean, that's not beyond the letter of the law. That's the most basic, most simple for any functional society of human beings. That has to be a given. That there's a respect for human life, and it's not just that if Big Brother's not looming over you, that you would kill somebody, God forbid. So it seems very out of place in this book, which is a book of ethics, of going beyond, of doing more. Another question is, what's the relationship between these two teachings? I mean, they're said by two different teachers. I mean, they're both named Hanina, but that's about it. They're two totally different people, two totally different teachings, seemingly. One is talking about pray for the welfare of the government or people would destroy each other, and the other one is talking about the rapport between two who study Torah, and seemingly there's no connection between the two, the themes of the two clauses. And yet they are grouped together in one Mishnah. I mean, if they're two different subjects, let them be divided. Make a paragraph break. Make it another Mishnah. Doesn't cost extra. It could be chapter 3, Mishnah 2, and chapter 3, Mishnah 3. So you have an extra Mishnah in the chapter. Another question, and this isn't such a burning question, but I'll just throw it in there. What's with the euphemism when it says, if not for the fear of the government, people would swallow each other alive? I mean, if you're talking about murder, just say it. Say it out. Why this poetry here, swallowing each other alive? So I want to share with you an approach for answering these questions and for studying this Mishnah, which was set forth by the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, and it can be found in Likutei Sichos in volume 17. The approach is based on the idea that when Hanina ben Tradian describes two people studying Torah together, or two people where there's no divrei Torah, no words of Torah between them, they're actually not a case where there's Torah study in one case and there's no Torah study in the other case. What I mean is like this. They could very well be both studying Torah. You have two people studying Torah. The difference is in the prepositional phrase, beineihem, between them. In other words, there are two who are sitting and they're both studying Torah. But it's not beineihem, it's not between them. They're not studying with each other, they're studying at each other. They're using Torah, or misusing it, to get one up on each other. I don't just mean intellectually, which is bad enough, but I mean to be holier than thou, to put each other down. Torah study is a sacred occupation. Torah study is supposed to allow us to regard the other as more holy, as more than human, as something godly. Not, God forbid, ever to use Torah to regard the other as someone less than human. So what's happening is these two are studying Torah, but it's like one yid on top and one yid on bottom. It's a vertical relationship rather than a horizontal one. And it's a seif pasuk. It's the end of a sentence. It cannot go further. There's no productive communication happening. There's not a dialogue. However, when two are sitting and the divrei Torah is beineihem, the words of Torah is between them, in other words, they regard each other as equals. There's respect for the other, even if they don't agree. Then, when the divrei Torah is between them, the Shekhinah is between them. God's presence comes to dwell between them. They make the presence of God in their holy union of Torah study together. Now we can understand the connection to the first clause of the Mishnah. The first clause of the Mishnah is speaking about something that is beyond the letter of the law. What it's speaking about, Malchus. Malchus means government, but Malchus also means, in Kabbalah, Malchus is a sphira. Malchus is an emanation. That means one of the ways that Hashem relates to the creation, that Hashem speaks the world into being. But being created in Hashem's image, Malchus is also a faculty of the soul. And, wouldn't you know it, it's the faculty of speech. If the Malchus of Hashem is how Hashem speaks the world into being, the Malchus of a human being is how we make worlds, how we speak, how we communicate. Malchus is our interface with that which is outside of ourselves. So it's the bridge between our internal world and the external world, the subjective and the objective. Having yira, fear, or let's translate it awe, reverence for Malchus, also means that we are in awe, that we respectfully regard the ability, the capacity of our fellow human to express himself, to channel his Malchus, his ability to communicate. In fact, in rabbinic literature, the human being is called min hamedaber, the speaking species. Because that which is most uniquely human is our ability to engage, not only to engage in cognitive thought, but to share that with another human being, to express abstract concepts, hopes, dreams, ideals. So when we're in awe, sufficiently in awe of the godliness of that, of the holiness of that, when we respect the malchus of another human being, then when we sit across from each other, we are one Yid next to another Yid, and we make Hashem's name. That our Torah study unifies us, and it's a sacred occupation and a sacred activity. And that's what it says at the end of the second clause of the Mishnah, when it quotes the scriptural verse as support. What does it say? Shenemar oz nidbru yirei Hashem ish el re'ehu. Then those who fear or revere Hashem are speaking one to his fellow. In other words, they're speaking to each other, but they are doing so in a manner of respect or awe of Hashem. They are in awe of the godliness contained within the other. Here we see where the duties of Bein Adam L'Mokim and Bein Adam L'Chavere dovetail. The duties between man and the omnipresent, between man and God, and the duties between man and his fellow, they really become one and the same, and they complement and enrich each other. So what happens when the people who revere God speak to each other? They speak to each other in a way of beholding each other's godliness. V'yakshev Hashem v'yishma, Hashem is listening. Because of Sefer Zikaron Lefanov, l'yirei Hashem u'lechoshvei shmoi. For those who fear the Lord, meaning who revere the godliness within each other, and meditate upon his name, the name of Hashem, the Shekhinah, that their interaction, their dialogue of Torah study actually brings Hashem's name into the world. So I want to bless all of us, myself included, although I join you virtually, that we should engage in Torah study in a way that binds us to Hashem and to our fellows. And that when we appreciate the divinity of Torah study, that it also brings us closer to that which is divine in our fellow. And when we appreciate that which is divine in our fellow, it brings us closer to the divinity of Torah study, to our personal relationship with Hashem, the giver of the Torah. The two are mutually compatible and complement each other. And may we be blessed with success in our Torah study, both individually and as a community and a nation, amongst all Klal Yisrael.
Thanks for listening to Rabbi Shais Taub for Sinai X. When we learned the Mishnah at the start of today's sessions, we discussed the importance of creating fences, the importance of creating environments which are conducive to achieving greatness. Rabbi Taub explains the importance of giving each other space to explore and discover.